What if I told you that one man's collection of companies could soon become worth more than most nations on Earth? Not in some distant future, within the next decade. Now, before you think that sounds impossible, let me walk you through history. Because this has happened before, multiple times. And every single time, the results were more explosive than anyone predicted at the time. This is the story of the coming technological convergence of Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI, and why this represents the most transformational event in human history. Let's dive in. Before we go further, if you're considering a Tesla, use my referral link in the description below to get $1,000 off a new car or free supercharging miles. It's also a great way to support the channel. And if you find value in this analysis, hit the subscribe button. We're tracking the most exciting technological transformation humanity has ever witnessed, and you'll want to be part of this journey. Now, let's explore why. Historical patterns prove this isn't just hype. It's how technological revolutions actually work. Let me start with a pattern that keeps repeating throughout history. When three or more foundational technologies converge at the same time, something magical happens. The impact isn't additive, it's exponential. And the wealth creation that follows reshapes entire civilizations. Let me give you some concrete examples that will blow your mind. The first industrial revolution in the late 1700s and early 1800s wasn't caused by one invention. It was the convergence of three technologies. Steam engines providing power, iron production for machinery and railways, and mechanized textile manufacturing. When these three came together, productivity in cotton spinning multiplied by 500 times. 500 times. That single convergence contributed 43% of all measured productivity advances during that era. The United Kingdom's GDP per capita doubled between 1760 and 1860. And this was happening in a global economy worth only about $500 billion at the time. That convergence represented a 20 to 30% transformation of the entire industrialized world's economy. Fast forward to the late 1800s and early 1900s. The second industrial revolution happened when electricity generation, steel production, and communications technologies converged simultaneously. This enabled national markets, mass industrialization, and the modern corporation. In the United States alone, GDP rose from about $500 billion to over $1 trillion between 1900 and 1920 when you adjust for inflation. That's a doubling in just 20 years, representing 20 to 30% of global economic growth during that period. The global economy at that time was only about $3 trillion total. Then came the automobile revolution. This wasn't just about inventing cars. It was the convergence of internal combustion engines, assembly line, production methods, and petroleum refining infrastructure. These three technologies came together and created an entirely new industry that today contributes trillions annually to global economies. In the United States, the automotive ecosystem now drives about $1 trillion yearly, roughly 5% of GDP. But in the 1920s, it boosted American prosperity by 10 to 20% indirectly through related industries and economic activity. This was happening in a global economy of about $1 trillion total. Now let's jump to more recent history. The personal computer revolution in the 1970s and 1980s came from the convergence of semiconductor chips, software operating systems, and networking protocols. This created a multiplier effect that grew the tech sector from billions to trillions. The global semiconductor market alone is now worth $600 billion annually. During the 1980s and 1990s, this convergence added 1 to 2% to annual US GDP. Growth amid a global economy of $5 to $10 trillion at the time. But here's where it gets really relevant to what we're seing today. The internet revolution in the 1990s converged three technologies: computing hardware, telecommunications infrastructure, and hypertext protocols, the World Wide Web. This exponentially multiplied information access and created e-commerce from nothing. Between 2005 and 2010, internet-related activities contributed 21% of GDP growth in mature economies. Today, the digital economy represents about 15% of global GDP. That's $16 trillion out of a roughly $100 trillion world economy. And most recently, the smartphone revolution starting in 2007 integrated mobile telephony, personal computing, and digital cameras into a single device. This transformed a niche gadget market into a $500 billion plus annual industry. Mobile technology now contributes about 6% to global GDP, $6.5 trillion annually. That grew from essentially zero in just 15 years in an economy that was $60 trillion when it started. Now here's the pattern I want you to see. Every single one of these convergences created exponential multiplier effects. Every single one reshaped significant portions of the global economy. And every single one seemed impossible or wildly optimistic to people living through the early stages. But they all happened, and they all created more value than the skeptics thought possible. So when we talk about Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI potentially reaching $75 trillion in combined value by 2036, we're not pulling numbers from thin air. We're following the exact same pattern that's played out repeatedly throughout history. Except this time, the convergence is even more powerful. Let me explain why. Right now, in January 2026, we're looking at a combined enterprise value exceeding $2.5 trillion. Tesla's publicly traded with a market cap around $1.5 trillion. SpaceX just hit an $800 billion valuation in their latest tender offer. xAI recently raised at a valuation north of $230 billion. But here's what makes this different from every historical precedent. These aren't just three technologies converging. These are three complete, vertically integrated ecosystems, converging under unified strategic control. And Elon Musk controls significant stakes across all three entities, enabling coordination that's never been possible before. Let's talk about what happens when xAI's artificial intelligence meets Tesla's autonomous driving platform. We're witnessing the convergence of AI training systems, real-world sensor networks, and manufacturing scale. Grok models training on billions of miles of actual driving data. Tesla's already the leader in autonomy technology. And when you amplify that with xAI's intelligence layer, you're looking at robo-taxis that could dominate a market projected between $100 billion and $400 billion by 2035. This echoes the automobile convergence I mentioned earlier: internal combustion plus assembly lines plus petroleum infrastructure. That historical convergence created trillions in value and represented 10 to 20% of economic growth in a $1 trillion global economy during the 1920s. This modern convergence is targeting similar relative impact, but in a much larger 150 to $200 trillion global economy projected for 2036. Now let's go orbital, because this is where it gets truly unprecedented. SpaceX has thousands of Starlink satellites already operational. Tesla's pioneering solar technology and battery storage systems at massive scale. AI needs enormous computational power. When you converge these three capabilities, you unlock space-based AI data centers. This is bigger than it sounds. Think about GPS technology, that converged satellites, atomic clocks, and digital signal processing in the 1970s through 1990s. GPS created over $100 billion in civilian location services and delivered $1.4 trillion in cumulative economic benefits in the United States alone since 1983. That's about 0.3% of GDP annually in a $20 trillion economy. This orbital AI convergence is aiming for something far bigger in relative scale, potentially capturing massive share of the projected $1.8 trillion space economy by 2035. But the real secret weapon that makes this convergence unstoppable is something no historical precedent could achieve: the closed-loop data flywheel. Tesla generates billions of miles of driving data every month. SpaceX collects continuous satellite telemetry and orbital insights. xAI trains superior models like Grok, using all of this real-world information. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle that compounds advantages over time. While OpenAI and Anthropic are brilliant organizations, they don't have access to this integrated data stream. They can't replicate it. And as this flywheel spins faster, the gap widens exponentially. This is similar to how the internet converged computing, telecom, and hypertext. But the internet was mostly about information flow. This convergence is about intelligence improvement in a feedback loop. It's more powerful. Here's where the sustainability angle creates another historical parallel. Remember how steam engines, iron railways, and coal mining converged during the first industrial revolution? That convergence had a 500 times productivity multiplier in textiles and drove 43% of total productivity advances. Tesla's solar panels and megapack battery systems powering Starship launches, orbital habitats, and xAI supercomputers create similar infrastructure synergies. Except instead of being limited to Earthbound industrialization, this extends to space. We're talking about cost advantages for multiplanetary expansion and entirely new revenue streams from space-based renewable energy. The first industrial revolution reshaped 20 to 30% of a $500 billion global economy in industrialized regions. This convergence is projecting to reshape 40 to 50% of a $150 to $200 trillion global economy by 2036. Now let's talk about the financial catalysts that could trigger explosive value creation. SpaceX is targeting an IPO in 2026, with potential valuations reaching $1.5 trillion. When SpaceX goes public, billions of dollars in new capital flow into cross-company initiatives. Potential deeper integration or merger scenarios between Tesla and xAI through all-stock deals would align incentives while minimizing dilution. When public markets can directly invest in this integrated convergence story, we're talking about market enthusiasm that could drive valuations beyond what seems possible today. History shows this pattern clearly. When radio technology converged electricity generation, vacuum tube electronics, and broadcasting infrastructure in the 1920s, it created multi-billion-dollar empires in modern equivalent terms and contributed 1 to 2% of 1930s global GDP in a $3 trillion world economy through entirely new media sectors. Let me give you the growth mathematics backed by historical patterns. Every major technological convergence I've described delivered 2 to 3 times value uplift minimum. But this situation integrates entire ecosystems across artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and space infrastructure under unified control. If we model a blended compound annual growth rate between 35 and 45% over the next decade, which is conservative based on historical convergence patterns, you're looking at potential valuations in the range of $50 to $100 trillion. The midpoint estimate sits around $75 trillion. To put that in perspective, using our historical examples, the internet convergence captured about 15% of today's global economy. The smartphone convergence captured about 6%. This convergence is projecting to capture 40 to 50% of the 2036 projected global economy of $150 to $200 trillion. That's bigger in relative terms than the first industrial revolution's impact, which transformed 20 to 30% of industrialized economies. And that value isn't concentrated in one narrow market. This convergence has the potential to dominate simultaneously across multiple trillion-dollar sectors. Artificial intelligence could be worth 7 to 8 trillion by 2036. Autonomous mobility and robotaxis at another, 100 billion to 400 billion plus. The space economy contributes 1.8 trillion. Robotics and energy stack on top of that. No other organization combines hardware manufacturing, software development, data infrastructure, and vertical integration at this scale. The closest historical parallel was maybe the second industrial revolution convergence of electricity, steel, and communications. But even that was spread across hundreds of different companies. This is all under coordinated strategic control. Now, I need to be absolutely clear about something. This is not financial advice. You need to use your own brain. Do your own research. Understand your risk tolerance. Make decisions based on your personal financial situation and goals. I'm sharing analysis of technological trends and historical patterns, but investment decisions are yours and yours alone. That said, here's what history teaches us. Elon Musk has an execution track record that's genuinely unprecedented in the modern era. Tesla went from a $50 billion valuation to trillions. SpaceX made reusable orbital rockets reality when the entire aerospace industry said it was impossible. This isn't just vision. It's execution at a level we rarely see outside of historical examples like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, or John D. Rockefeller. And critically, Musk has unified control across entities, eliminating the coordination problems that destroyed value in every historical convergence where competing companies fought for dominance. Some analysts are already projecting Musk could become the world's first trillionaire within years. If that happens, the mathematics imply company valuations in the tens of trillions. But the ultimate payoff here transcends money entirely. We're talking about the foundation for interplanetary civilization. Optimus robots building habitats on Mars. xAI handling the intelligence systems. SpaceX and Tesla providing transportation and energy infrastructure. This convergence creates an interplanetary economy with value extending far beyond Earthbound calculations. It's potentially the most transformative force since the internet convergence, except bigger in scope and ambition. Remember, the internet converged computing, telecom, and hypertext to create a 10 trillion plus digital economy, representing 15% of current global GDP. This convergence aims to reshape 40 to 50% of a much larger 2036 economy, while also extending human civilization beyond our planet for the first time in history. The printing press convergence in the 15th century, movable type, paper manufacturing, and ink chemistry had profound multiplier effects on knowledge dissemination and drove 1 to 2% additional European GDP growth annually after 1450 in a global economy of about $200 billion. That convergence enabled the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the scientific revolution. We're watching something potentially more transformative unfold right now. The convergence of intelligence, autonomy, and space capability under unified vision. Are there risks? Absolutely. Regulatory challenges could slow progress. Competition exists and will fight hard. Execution is never guaranteed regardless of track record. But when you look at the synergies, the data advantages, the manufacturing DNA, the vertical integration, and most importantly, the historical patterns, these factors don't just add together, they multiply. Every historical convergence example I've shared proved the skeptics wrong because exponential effects are hard for human brains to grasp. The competitive moat becomes almost impossible to cross as time goes on, and the flywheel accelerates. So here's my final thought. This isn't about betting on 3 companies. This is about recognizing that we're watching the assembly of infrastructure for humanity's next chapter. The convergence of artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and space capability under unified strategic vision. History shows us that technological convergences reshape civilizations. The first, Industrial Revolution, The second industrial revolution. Automobiles, personal computers, the internet, smartphones. Every single time, the impact exceeded expectations. Every single time, the wealth creation was exponential. Every single time, the skeptics were proven wrong by the actual results. The hardware is being built right now. The software is accelerating daily. The data flywheel is spinning faster with every passing month. And the timeline is compressing in ways that even optimists struggle to fully grasp. We are living through the most exciting time in human history. The transition from a single planet species, constrained by scarcity, to a multi-planetary civilization with abundance. Whether you choose to invest financially or simply pay attention and participate in this transformation, understand that you're witnessing something genuinely historic unfold in real time. The pattern is clear from history. 3 technologies converge. Exponential multiplier effects kick in. The economy gets reshaped. Massive wealth gets created. And humanity takes a giant leap forward. It happened with steam and iron and textiles. It happened with electricity and steel and communications. It happened with the internet. It's happening right now with AI and autonomy and space. The future isn't coming. It's being built. And the scale of what's possible is almost beyond comprehension. If this historical analysis added value to your understanding, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to stay updated on the biggest technological transformation of our lifetimes. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this convergence and which historical parallel you find most compelling. And remember, use that Tesla referral link in the description if you're considering a purchase. Free supercharging miles for you, support for this channel, and you become part of this incredible journey. Thanks for watching. Let's keep exploring the future together by learning from the patterns of the past.